Have you ever wondered what a blockchain is or how it works? Well, today you are about to learn something new in this video. A blockchain is a new way to store data. Rather than centralizing information and the control over it in one place called database, blockchains store it across a network where no one point has the authority to change records. This is called decentralization. Blockchains record data in blocks, and securely store this data by chaining those blocks together using cryptography, hence a blockchain. Satoshi Nakamoto, the alias of the individual or group behind Bitcoin that we met earlier, conceptualized the idea of a blockchain in a 2008 white paper, Blueprint. The ability to create a decentralized ledger of transactions was fundamental to the viability of Bitcoin, a new peer-to-peer digital cash, and solving the double spend problem. In other words, how to create a purely digital money that cannot be spent twice and doesn't go through a financial institution, it just flows from person to person across a distributed network. The blockchain was a central element in Satoshi's solution, in combination with a method for ensuring that only valid transactional data was added to each new block, known as the consensus mechanism. In the other videos we discovered that money was first used to facilitate trade. Facilitating the exchange of goods between two parties that didn't know or trust each other. As civilization and commerce have expanded, it has been accepted that the only solution to this trust issue at scale is to centralize power in the hands of an ultimate arbiter. Monarchs, generals, governments, or multinational institutions have the final say on, and control over, what's fair, law, who owns what assets, and what those assets are worth. This arrangement has been more practical than optimal. Time and again, we have seen that trusting a central authority is a less than efficient way to do things. I'm looking at you, 2008 financial crisis. All this talk of governments and authority may be starting to sound a bit far-fetched, so let's take a few steps back and focus on the central issue of how blockchains achieve trust without authority. First, we'll break down the unique characteristics of a blockchain, how data is structured, then describe the process for reaching agreement, consensus, on the validity of that data. The consensus mechanism really is the secret sauce of blockchain, as this is what enables the removal of a controlling authority. Finally, we will assess blockchain's limitations and evaluate if the technology is worth all this hype, which will lead nicely on to the final two parts in this video on crypto adoption and crypto frontiers. Now let's look at the unique characteristics of a blockchain. Each block in a blockchain contains three things. 1. Data to be recorded that is represented by what's called a cryptographic hash. 2. A coded representation, or cryptographic hash, of the previous block's data. 3. A timestamp of when the block was added to the chain. Let's break down these three things into what they are. Data. The data recorded on a blockchain can vary depending on what is using the technology. For example, as a currency, Bitcoin uses a blockchain to record its transaction data, which is why it's referred to as a ledger. Other uses include supply chain data management, healthcare data, and identity records. The sky's the limit, so long as the information can be digitalized. The point is that blockchains can securely store many different types of data. Cryptographic hashes. A cryptographic hash is essentially a coded representation of a piece of information. It uses a mathematical function to generate this representation, linking the meaningful information to the hash. Thus, if I were to change the information, the corresponding hash would change, as the two things are inextricably linked by the hash function. Here's some simplified examples. Our data, y equals 1. We apply a cryptographic hash function, to jumble it up. This generates the hash y1. If I were to change the original data to y equals 2, and apply the hash function, the hashed output would also change, giving us y2. Crucially, it is trivial to confirm that y2 is the correct output of the hash, but almost impossible to work out what the input was. Hashing is how websites can store your passwords, confirm they are valid when you input them, but not be able to know what they are. This is simplified for explanation purposes because cryptographic hashes encode the data that they represent. Therefore, the only link between the data and the hash is the mathematical function that generates the hash and not any content. Here's another example. Input data y equals 1. Apply hash function. Hashed output equals dog. Change the input data to y equals 2. Apply hash function. Hashed output equals trees. There is no discernible relation between dog and trees, they are simply products of the same hash function generated from the data sets y equals 1 and y equals 2. In reality, cryptographic hashes are long strings of letters and numbers that don't correspond to any words or meanings apart from representing the data, but are of uniform length. What digital cryptography lends to the solution to our trust problem is a reliable method for securing data that doesn't require authority or threat of violence. The third part in a block of a blockchain is timestamps. This one is pretty self-explanatory, a record of the time that an individual block of data was added to the chain. Though simple, time stamping is crucial, giving blockchains verifiable and unchangeable historical reference points. The innovation of blockchain technology is that by design, blockchains are resistant to retroactive modification and can store data securely without a centralized authority. The process starts with the cryptographic hash function. Each block has a hash function for its own data and a hash function for the last block's data. By encoding the previous block's data into each new block, the hashes create a chain that as it grows becomes ever harder to corrupt. To tamper with, or modify any particular block's data, you would also have to modify all subsequent blocks to keep the chain valid. If I change the data on a specific block, its corresponding hash will change, remember from our dog example above, and be different to all following blocks' recorded hashes, and thus the chain will become invalid. However, due to the speed of today's computers, this hash function isn't enough to secure blockchains from being tampered with. Computers can calculate hundreds of thousands of hash functions per second and could effectively calculate new hashes for all blocks in a chain to make it valid again. Thus, Satoshis need to create a consensus mechanism, borrowing from previous attempts at digital cash, that was immune to brute force attack. Well, that is it for the first part of this video. In the second part of this video, we will delve into blockchain's proof of work and how consensus is achieved. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel for more videos about blockchain and technology.